everybody, so welcome back to another Magic event here at Lost Legion Games and Comics in South Charleston, West Virginia. My name, as always, is Zachary Evans, and I'll be by myself today as we watch the Star City Games Invitational Qualifier hosted by Lost Legion. A $25 standard tournament with the winner getting $250 cash and an invite to a Star City Invitational later in the year. 24 players today means 5 rounds of Swiss followed by a cut to top 8, and we're already into our round 1 feature match. On the left, stream regular Scotty Wright piloting the Junk Aristocrats deck that he's become quite familiar with over the last couple of months, and his opponent, another stream regular, Garrett Meadows, who this week has opted for an American Flash deck, though I should say it's probably more of a control build. I think these decks have kind of morphed over the last few months, if not a year, from more of a tempo-based Flash deck into more of a control build. So Garrett's landing an O-Ring that takes care of a Scourgedack High Priest and a Turn and Burn, taking out a Cartel Aristocrat. So Scotty running out a lot of threats, and Garrett answering them 1 for 1 so far. Interesting matchup. This is a pretty fair fight. So Garrett plays his 5th land and passes back. Content to play a draw go. Sitting back likely on counter magic. As we see, Scotty has drawn one of his Obsidats, which is one of the best cards in this matchup, especially since Garrett has already burned through one of his turn and burns. Unfortunately, it's very unlikely that simply drawing a 5th land and casting it won't run it into a counter spell, but Scotty is playing some number of Cavern of Souls, which he can use to force it through. So Aristocrat serves in for 2. Scotty plays his 3rd Aristocrat of the game. I guess Garrett deciding if it's going to resolve or not. Looks like that's the only other... Looks like the Obsidat in Scotty's hand is the only non-land card that he's playing right now. Garrett is going to Snapcaster the burn half of Turn and Burn, targeting the untapped Cartel Aristocrat. I guess Scotty trying to decide if he wants to do something in response. I think this is mostly just trying to represent a card in his hand that he doesn't have here. He's going to go ahead and sack the tapped Aristocrat to the Turn and Burn, which basically nets him the same result, if only that his Aristocrat is now untapped, possibly keeping Garrett from attacking into it, though it's very unlikely that the Aristocrat would trade with the Snapcaster. It's very unlikely that Scotty wants to offer up that kind of swap. Scotty drawing, looks like another land off the top of his deck, so he's well and truly out of business. He can't even serve in with his Aristocrat because of the Snapcaster on the other side. Garrett's going to go ahead and Sphinx for 2. Put him back up to his starting life total at 20, and draw him 2 cards. So Garrett just adds another land and passes back. Scotty with an Obsidat in hand, but unwilling to run that out into untapped mana. Looks like he's possibly drawn a Garrett? A Garrick, I should say. And that is, in fact, what he's drawn, a Garrick Relentless. It's very unlikely that this resolves. No, and it looks like it does, so Scotty sneaks through a Garrick, which I imagine was a test spell trying to eat up a counter so that he can cast Obsidat next turn, but the Garrick resolves, so Scotty's going to start making wolf tokens. Garrett, having already burned through 1 Oblivion Ring, might be difficult to deal with that Garrick, though he is playing some number of War Leaders Helix. End of turn, Garrett's going to flash in a Restoration Angel, which will allow him to take care of the Garrett in combat. Getting no value off the Snapcaster, however, so losing a little bit of synergy there, but more than happy to trade, or to get the Planeswalker off the board. Scotty draws a Sun Petal Grove for his turn. Not many lands left in Scotty's deck, I can imagine, at this point. Now the question is he willing to run that Obsidian out? He's been very patient up until this point. He's going to continue to wait. Garrett's going to flash back, I think, twice. Again, I apologize for the glare. The long and short of it is they fixed one of the overhead lights that's directly above our feature match area, which does a lot better job of brightening up the play area out there, but unfortunately has the side effect of giving us a little bit of glare. I've tried to isolate it to the bottom of the field, but it's still going to come into play. Scotty draws a Skursnak High Priest off the top. Not nearly the threat that it could be at other points in the game, as Scotty does not have a sack outlet, nor a third creature, so the demon-making ability not nearly as potent at this point in the game. So Garrett continuing to beat down with his Restoration Angel. Not missing any of his land drops, and passing back with a grip full of cards. And all the mana in the world. Scotty draws a Tragic Slip. He's going to serve in with his Wolf in an attempt to activate Morbid. And before damage, Garrett is going to Azorius Charm his own Snapcaster Mage to put it back on top, giving him the ability to flash back Sphinx's Revelation next turn, but in response, Scotty is going to non-morbid his Tragic Slip and take out the Snapcaster. Scotty obviously hoping to bin his own Wolf to be able to try and slip the Restoration Angel. And Scotty's decided this is the time to pull the trigger with just Garrett with just 2 cards in hand. And I imagine this Obsidian is going to stick. Because I imagine if there was a Syncopate or Dissipate in Garrett's hand, he would have run it out. End of turn, Garrett is going to activate Moorland Haunt. Make a 1/1 Spirit. And now the race is truly on as Obsidian's going to swing the life totals by 7 every turn. And Garrett's going to struggle to find a way to deal with it. So Scotty very patient sitting back on that Obsidian for about 10 turns, eventually deciding that was the time to pull the trigger. Excuse me. There is the Snapcaster, targeting Sphinx's Revelation. Snapcaster going to trade with the High Priest. And Scotty just content to blink his Obsidian in and out. Not willing to attack into a possible Azorius Charm that would allow Garrett another window to counter it on the following turn. So with the 4 life gained off the Sphinx's Revelation, Garrett is slowly pulling himself back into this and possibly being able to race the Obsidian trigger, especially if Scotty is unwilling to attack with the 5/5. 6 mana, 4 Aetherling. And now Scotty is dead on board, with the Aetherling pumping up to 8, being unblockable, and with 4 power flyers already on board, even after the Obsidian trigger comes in. Scotty has 2 lands in his hand. I think we're moving to game 2 on this one. As Scotty has just as much trouble dealing with the Aetherling as Garrett has dealing with Scotty's Obsidian. And that is going to be enough. Exactly lethal that turn. though more than likely would have won a much longer game as well. And so the American Control deck of Garrett Meadows takes the very first game of the very first feature match of today's Star City Games IQ. These guys will move to sideboard, and we'll take this opportunity to thank the fine folks here at Lost Legion Games for not only hosting this event, but for allowing us to stream all of the events from the store here, as we do run a weekly FNM stream where we predominantly play Standard, but do occasionally have drafts at pre-release. So if you're interested in watching more live coverage of Magic tournaments, make sure to click the follow button on the Twitch screen in front of you, above and to the left of the video screen, on the old layout, and below and to the left on the new layout, and you'll get an email notification anytime our stream goes live. We also want to thank the fine folks at inkplaymats.com. As you see, the custom double playmat that they've hooked us up with. Very easy guys to work with, very generous, and great quality products, so I have no problem endorsing them. So head over to inkplaymats.com for your own custom playmats, your own custom double playmats, as well as other original art branded material. And then finally, if you're in the market for Magic singles, head over to affinityforcards.com. Is the online retail sponsor of our stream. Obviously, we encourage everyone to support their local game store as best they can, but we all know that there are cards that you just can't find in your local display cases, and if that's the case, head over to affinityforcards.com for some of the lowest prices on the internet. Use promo code LOSTLEGION, all one word, for 5% off your first order. So once again, apologies that it's just me here today. We've got obviously lots of people playing in the event, and that's obviously much more of a concern for us than whether or not there's somebody here in this empty seat. Like I said, for those of you just joining us for the first time, my name is Zachary Evans. I am the Zach, and Zach Sells Magic. I know it's horrible branding, but it is what it is. So we have 24 players in this week's, or in this specific Star City IQ. Those of you who've been following us for a long time know that we ran one back in April that had 52 players, and unfortunately we only had 24 this week. I think it's just a time of year when it's difficult to get people out to Magic events. You've got school starting back up, people still in the last few weeks of summer on vacation and whatnot. Also, you've got the core set currently as the most recent block. Not nearly as much hype around M14 as there were around the 3 sets in Return to Ravnica, but still we appreciate the 24 folks that came out today, and we appreciate the 180 of you that are watching currently online. We definitely appreciate your patronage and hope that you enjoy the broadcast. Make sure to follow us on our various forms of social media for other Magic content. Like I said, 24 players, which means 5 rounds of Swiss, and we've got the usual cast of characters, as well as some grinders from the region that are not necessarily regulars at our F&M stream. We've got the local legend Adam Vickers here. He's playing Gruul Aggro, as is Brandon Gibbs. We've got Michael Robinson, aka Mike Rob, who came in second at the last IQ we had, playing Junk Reanimator. This week he's playing Red, White, Black Aristocrats. Earlier in this month, when we had our big Customer Appreciation Day Modern Masters Win-A-Box tournament, Mike Rob won that with Junk Aristocrats as well, so he's had some good luck at the last 2 big events we've had. We've got Aaron McLaughlin here. He's playing Jund. He recently won, recently did very well at TCG IQ. We've also got Michael Newman. I think he's also playing Jund. And it would not be a Magic tournament unless Zach Vilianco was here with some kind of ridiculous deck, and he is playing a deck with Nivix, Cyclops, and Flux Chargers in it. Don't know if we'll find a way to get him under the feature match camera, as for an event like this, we try to focus a little bit more on the high-level Magic as opposed to the super fun decks. For those of you who haven't watched our F&M stream, we do have a wide variety of off-the-wall brews that we try to highlight, as well as the normal Tier 1 decks. So that's the rundown of the event at hand. These guys are quickly moving into Game 2. 60-minute rounds for this tournament. It is a competitive REL. We normally run 45 minutes for our other events, but obviously want to give people the time they need for this. So we will have 5 rounds of Swiss and the cut to top 8. We'll be broadcasting every round that they wish to play. So sit in, grab yourself a cold drink and some snack items for a fun Saturday of casual competitive Magic the Gathering imaginary wizard fights. Let's see what's going on in the chat. It is interesting, or not interesting, but it is an interesting comment. There are a lot of people. This is Gen Con week, and it is something that I had neglected when we tried to pick a weekend for this. But to be perfectly honest, there weren't a lot of weekends in this kind of time frame that were perfect. You had M14 Game Day last week. We've had PTQ in Columbus last weekend. We've got some upcoming IQs in Richmond. Some upcoming GPs and classics that are somewhat conflicting with dates during this time of the year. So there's always going to be some kind of conflict. We just try to avoid them as best we can. Obviously not going to begrudge anyone for going to Gen Con. To be perfectly honest, I wish I had gone myself. But next year come hell or high water, I will be there. More importantly, these guys have shuffled up and sideboarded, and we move into Game 2. I realize right now that I have deck lists for this event. Well, I don't have them, but the store has them, as this is a competitive event. So if this goes to Game 3 and in future rounds, I'll make sure to get the deck list for our feature map participants and talk about the exact cards in their list and the sideboarding opportunities they have. Question in the chat about whether or not we're going to do a Legacy stream anytime soon. We had Legacy this week on our bi-monthly Wednesday night Legacy event. We had 12 players and pretty good turnout and pretty good tournament. So if we can continue to do that, we'll try to do a Legacy stream maybe once a month, as it is a considerable amount of extra work during the week. And to be perfectly honest, I enjoy playing in those events. So meanwhile, back to the action. Scotty resolving a duress, nabbing a Supreme Verdict, and seeing a hand that predominantly consists of Restoration Angels. You see Scotty has a sword in his hand as well as a Voice of Resurgence. So it looks like the Voice probably going to make an appearance here. And that is the play that Scotty chooses, with Garrett just representing one blue mana, sneaking it in under counter magic. So Garrett forced to sorcery speed his think twice here as the Voice effectively turns off the flash in his deck. And Scotty draws another Voice. Are we going to see a Sorin Lord of Innistrad here with Garrett tapped out again? So for just as up against it as Scotty was in Game 1, running out threats that were constantly answered by Garrett, looks like his hand is all gas, with the Voice in play turning off Garrett's counterspells, or at least making them a lot less lucrative, and landing an on-curve Planeswalker. So Scotty in a pretty good spot here. Going to serve in with his Voice for 2. No, he's going to serve in with his Voice for 3, making a Sorin Emblem. So Scotty just beating down here, making sure to get the Emblem should Garrett untap and de-sphere or O-ring the Sorin. But Garrett has no play, so we know he's sitting on Restoration Angels, but when those come down, Scotty's going to get a Voice token. But Garrett may not have any better options at this point, having already lost his Supreme Verdict to a Duress. So Scotty's serving in with his Voice. He's going to get one Voice token from Garrett playing a spell during Scotty's turn. He's going to get a second one when the Voice gets killed in combat by the Angel. So Scotty with a Sorin Vampire, 2 Voice of Resurgent tokens, and a Sorin Emblem. So both of those tokens are 4/3s, and the Vampire is a 2/1 lifelinker. Scotty going to follow it up with the front half of Lingering Souls, pumping his Voice tokens even further. And so if I think if he flashes that back next turn and gives and gets rid of Sorin for an Emblem, I think Garrett's just dead on board here. And there is a supreme verdict from Garrett that clears out Scotty's board. So the best card Garrett could have drawn in that situation, having traded with the front half of that voice of resurgence. Scotty just throwing another one out while Garrett's tapped very low. He's going to flash back his lingering souls. So having lost his board, he's going to go ahead and make probably 4 creatures total here. He's going to tick up Sorin by 1. So building back, this a board state that's generated after his opponent played the Supreme Verdict. Not a bad turn for Scotty. Looking at his hand, well, I can't make it out, but having not played a land, Scotty should have all spells in his hand. Garrett going to cast an Augur of Bolas here. Looks like he whiffs. I saw a Snapcaster Mage in that pile, but no incense or sorceries. And there's a Restoration Angel at sorcery speed because of the voice, blinking the Augur, and whiffing yet again as 3 lands get pushed to the bottom. So Garrett running very poorly in this matchup, or I should say in this game, compared to the draw he had in the first game. So it looks like Scotty has a Cartel Aristocrat and a Doom Traveler in his hand, along with the third card that I can't make out. He's going to go ahead and make a second Sorum Emblem. Ton of power on board here. He can attack in with the voice here, and it will trade with the Restoration Angel should Garrett choose to make that block. Or Scotty can just attack with everything and force some damage through. And that's what he's going to do. He's just going to pound in with everything here. The vampire attack probably not that good, since the Augur can just chump it, or not chump it, but trade with it. So it looks like 10 damage total if Garrett doesn't block. Garrett is going to chump the voice. Scotty does have Gavney Township and an activation up. So Garrett chumping the voice, which now becomes a... Oh, I apologize. It doesn't, for whatever reason, thinking that the Sorin emblem is pumping both sides. Obviously, it only pumps the power. But the spirit tokens come in unblocked, so with 2 emblems and a Gavney activation, 4 powers of attackers each, dropping Garrett down to 9. So Garrett desperately looking for another sweeper. And Garrett decides it's time to pack him up. Pretty nutty draw from Scotty there, as he put a lot of power on the board very quickly, casting not 1, not 2, but 3 Voice of Resurgence, including the third one that came after Garrett had Supreme Verdict. So his deck providing all the gas that it didn't provide in Game 1. So with the match evened up, we move to the decider. Hey, Mike Rob. Did you win?
I got Naya blitzed.
You got Naya blitzed?
Yeah, right? Awkward.
So you're going to have to you got to do a fight through the loser's bracket this time.
Yeah, I know.
When you, in the other tournament, the other IQ, did you just win? Did you go undefeated in the Swiss?
I lost one.
You lost
like
one?
Second round, I lost to Esper Control.
Okay.
Yeah, beat him in the top 8.
And like you said, you were playing the red, white, black humans?
Yeah, human reanimators.
Oh, it's the human reanimator deck?
No, sorry, human aristocrats.
Oh, okay.
With Zathar Necromancers.
Okay.
Little nice tech. Lightning Maulers.
Lightning Maulers?
Yeah, soulbound.
Very aggressive.
Soulbound that Scourge deck. I like all day.
Oh, that actually is very good. I never thought about that.
Gorilla Grob. I'm glad to see you got a loyal fan base.
Yep, we do. We've got the second
Obviously not that good.
Huh?
Yeah, well, when you get beat on turn 4 by Burning Earth, I mean, it's pretty
who did you, let's see, you played Brandon Gibbs?
Yeah.
Oh, he's playing Naya.
Yeah.
He usually plays Gruul aggro. I mean, it's a very similar deck, but obviously going with the more all-in
Yeah, his creatures are bigger than mine, so.
Yeah. Well, most 2/2s are bigger than your
Yeah.
creatures. I don't know. Champion can get pretty big, I guess. Well, we've got a round one feature match here. We've got Scotty Wright, who's playing Junk Aristocrats, the deck that you piloted to first place of our Winterbox tournament a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he just drew even in game two against Garrett Meadows, who's playing, I don't know, you can call these decks American Flash or American Control. The decks nowadays seem a lot more controllish than they do. American Flash seems like a tempo deck to me. It's like almost like a Delver deck.
Yeah, with Geist and
yes,
Thundermauls.
and these are not. Have a Shoot Geist. The Thundermauls usually are a card that come out of the board if they play it at all. Any deck that has an Aetherling in it is a control deck to me. I would think so.
Yeah.
Aetherling and all the removal got there in game one, and then Scotty just annihilated Garrett in the last round.
Yeah, I was watching out there and saw a Sorin with 2 emblems in play.
Yeah, well, it was the 3 Voice of Resurgence that he cast during the game.
3?
Yeah.
I bet none of them got pillared.
No, none of them got pillared. None of them got none of them got countered, and Garrett was forced to sorcery speed all of his spells. Clearly losing a lot of value out of this deck if you can't leave your mana up, but so it'll be interesting to see. This matchup seems like a pretty fair fight. Just depends on who draws what. Scotty curving out with turn 1 Duress, turn 2 Voice, turn 3. I don't remember what he cast on turn 3, but he landed a Sorin on turn 4 when Garrett was tapped out, and that was pretty much one of those old instances where the game's over on turn 4, but you got to play the rest of the game to officially get there.
Yeah, you can't detention sphere that. Does he even have detention
spheres?
spheres?
Yeah, well, he has O-Ring, at least. We saw an O-Ring in the first game. I'm sure he's playing some number of detention spheres at some point in this 75, but...
Yeah, if you can't answer Sorin immediately, it gets out of hand quick.
Sorin is one of the chronically underrated planeswalkers. Like, it's a card that goes well in aggro as well as in control. It's a very good card.
I like it in the junk decks. I should have played one in my main deck, but I didn't. And there were a lot of situations that would have been pretty good.
I think Scotty, I have deck lists. I should have gone out there and got them, but I saw Scotty putting his deck together, and I think the Sorins are on the board, but either way, having access to them, because they're not like against a deck like, for example, Naya Blitz. Like, you don't really want Sorin at all, so...
No, against control matchups, the Planeswalkers are gold.
Yeah, and there's a lot of aggro in this field. Well, I think it's half and half, but there are some decks out there that are going to try for the turn 4, turn 5 kills. So it looks like Garrett is mulling to 6, and Scotty's keeping on 7 here. Garrett finds 6, and he likes leading off with a tapped Steam Vent. I've got to think Garrett obviously has much of Magic. It's interesting here that Garrett choosing not to... I don't think it really matters because I don't think Scotty's going to play around it. But Garrett playing his second land tapped, not trying to represent Syncopate. There's a pillar.
Yeah. Funny, in most situations, Scourge deck High Priest is just a draw for the pillar to let your voices get through.
Yeah, he does have a voice in his hand. He chose not to play it on turn 2, but I don't think Garrett's in a position where he can afford to not pillar it. Though there is an argument to be made for just leaving your mana open, because Scotty, in game 1, Scotty had an opposite that turns out if he had run out on curve or as soon as he drew his 5th land, probably would have, if not won him the game, made it much closer. But he's playing around counter magic, and
that's something I always got to think about.
Yeah, I mean, he was very patient about it, but it's one of those cases where, in that case, the more statistically correct play ended up costing him. No, I think he probably would have lost that game anyway. But
hey, y'all, what's going on?
hey, Aaron.
Swatching some magics.
Here we go. Deathrite Shaman, that's a really good card in this matchup.
Yeah, I think Deathrite's come out of the board. We saw this last night during our F&M stream when Scotty's brother Jonathan was in the finals playing just a blue-white control, like an old-school blue-white, just counter deck. And he was playing against Alec Myers, who was playing Junk Aristocrats. And the Aristocrats deck in this matchup brings in like 10 cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deathrites, he brought in Abrupt Decays against Jonathan's deck because Jonathan's deck was a Detention Sphere deck. I don't think it
especially Rest in Peace out of the sideboard really shuts down.
Oh yeah, you're right. I think Scotty opts for Golgari Charm instead, which is what he has. He has one in his hand. But yeah, something to answer Rest in Peace, because Rest in Peace is one of those cards that, to the untrained eye, I would think would not seem to be as influential in this matchup as it is, because The Aristocrats deck doesn't really deal out of its graveyard except for Lingering Souls, except for the fact that half the deck triggers Morbid.
Yeah.
And if you can
Which
eliminate
is
the Morbid
really
trigger,
where you want to be.
yeah, the Scourge deck High Priest becomes the worst squire in the world.
Yeah,
the rest in
absolutely.
peace.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize that last night. I had two rest in peace on my side and played against Scotty, and it didn't even occur to me to put him in.
Well, that's why we play the games, for learning experiences.
Well, no, someone brought it up to me today, and I was like, oh my god, best idea
That's a
ever.
Varels. That's really good in this matchup.
Varels-
Too bad he doesn't have anything to follow it with the sacrifice out.
No, he doesn't have a way to protect it from removal spell here either, as he doesn't have regenerate mana or it's not regenerate mana,
Yeah,
it's
it's a
sack a creature. But he does scavenge the death right onto it while Garrett is tapped out, so he at least gets around another pillar. So the turn burn takes care of the Voice of Resurgence the previous turn. Varels comes down, and now a Ratchet Bomb out on Garrett.
That Ratchet Bomb is really going to make Lingering Souls
Pointless.
Yeah.
Well, it's that waiting game too, where it's that kind of game of chicken where, Garrett's probably going to be willing at points to let the front half resolve and probably take some damage, but keep Scotty off of casting the back half of it. But so, like I said, in game one, Scotty's very patient with his Obsidet, so he won't run anything out that he thinks is going to get immediately.
Yeah, that Ratchet Bomb might sit there for a while, especially if Garrett has another removal spell in his hand, like a mass removal spell, a Supreme Verdict or Terminus or something like that.
Well, if Scotty's not going to add another creature to the board, then I think Garrett's fine letting Varels come in for a couple turns.
Yeah, especially, I don't know if he's running for Sphinx's Revelation, but he's right at that point where Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, he's at least running, I don't know what number of them he's running, but he is running at least two. I think 3 is the number he's playing.
And there's a Supreme Verdict going to take care of that Varels.
What's Scotty trying to do in response here? I know he has the Golgari Charm, which is irrelevant right here.
Is it though?
Oh wait,
Regenerate.
he does.
yeah.
He does give it regenerate. Yeah, I get the Rakdos Charm and the Golgari Charm. I know there's 6 abilities. I know all of them, but I have them intermixed between the two cards. So that one is all creatures -1/-1, destroy enchantment or regenerate your creatures, or is it target creature?
I think it's all your creatures.
I think you're right.
I think.
So Scotty
And
is
Morbid's a Cartel Aristocrat, so that's a 5 power now coming in there.
Scavenges.
He's all in on the Varels plan here.
Well, looking at his hand, I don't think he had too much else going on. Is he?
I'm
He doesn't
pretty
even
sure,
have it.
yeah,
No, he
doesn't
does.
have
It's
it.
over here on the side.
Oh, okay. 2 cards it looks like. Compared to 3.
Going in on that plane seems kind of the way to go, and it's the only one.
Well, if the Varels become such an issue that Garrett has to start Ratchet Bombing, taking up Ratchet Bomb to get to 3, then...
Yeah, but
Well,
he doesn't have enough time to do that.
Yeah, I think he's dead if he tries to go that route.
How big is Barrels right now?
5.
Yeah, so
It's a 2/2 base with 3
Yeah,
counters.
he's on turn 2 clock, but I mean, he's running. I'm sure Garrett has other cards in his hands that would make that Ratchet Bomb more.
Yeah. I mean, even Snapcaster at this point would fog.
Yeah.
Oh, renounce the guilds.
That gets around regeneration. Too.
Yes.
So that is a bomb card.
So an excellent card. And it'd be interesting to see, and again, I apologize for not having the deck list, despite the fact that they are up at the counter, whether or not Garrett is playing that in his main deck. Because I have seen some of these lists that play some in the main deck because there are a variety of creatures, a variety of permanents that you can't deal with. Predominantly Domri. That's the big thing, as we see Garrett cycling a Revelation for 3.
Renounce of the Guild is very good in a lot of matchups too. Like,
It gets Voice, it gets Reckoner, it gets Domri, it gets Sorin, it gets D-Sphere.
it's Geist.
it gets Olivia.
It gets Geist.
It
It
gets
gets
Geist.
Unflinching Courage.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Well, you're in that same matchup against Hexproof. You're hoping to get the Geist, but if you disenchant a Hexproof or a Armadillo Cloak, I think you're fine with that as well.
Yeah.
So Garrett in a much better spot here, still with that Ratchet Bomb on 0. Is there any chance this Voice resolves? It's interesting. I always assume that when Garrett has a handful of cards and 7 untapped mana sources, that there's no way that something's going to resolve. But I don't think these decks are playing that much counter magic.
Usually only
Like
2 to 3
dissipates.
So I wonder how much of it would have got sided out if it was in there in the first place.
I don't know. I think you want some counter magic against, because there's some of these cards that Scotty's playing, like Lingering Souls and the Voice, that you really want to dissipate. And there's a Ray of Revelation, getting the Voice back.
probably a nice one of.
And yeah, in his sideboard, and ensuring against further O-ring appearances. But this, but with nothing added to the board, this is a very slow clock for Scotty. We know Garrett's playing Turn and Burns. We know he's playing Snapcasters. There we see a Moreland Haunt, but I don't think Garrett's played a creature yet. Well, there's a very relevant creature, as Aetherling makes an appearance.
Does that make it a 3-turn clock?
It's a 3-turn clock. It's in chunks of 8, but Garrett being the burn deck as well, can very well be a 2-turn clock here.
Yeah, Scotty's in a very bad position.
Scotty has 2 Tragic Slips, so it'll be interesting here to see if he can somehow bait Garrett into tapping some amount of mana.
I think Garrett's too smart for that.
But usually the deck's only run 4, and I'm not sure against a deck like this you'd want to keep all 4 in.
The Tragic Slips?
Yeah.
No, I don't think you would.
So to playing around 1 Tragic Slip would be the right play, but I don't think Garrett would play around 2 in this situation.
Plus, I also don't think that now that Garrett's untapped with all of his mana, I don't
think it's an issue.
The Aetherling is never going to die. Now, whether or not Scotty can outpace the Aetherling is another question. So it looks like he's only pumping twice here. So that would make it a 6-power creature.
I'm curious as to what he's playing around, unless he's got something else up his sleeve.
I think he might just have... I think he's giving it Vigilance.
Well, essentially.
Yeah, I don't. He may be leaving up.
I think he just blinked it.
He may be leaving up like War Leader's Helix or something. End of turn.
That makes sense.
Which would make it lethal as well, or Searing Spear. But I don't think he's playing Searing Spears. I think he's only playing Pillars and Helix.
Well, Garrett's also in a position like Lingering Souls. Is that what that is? A foil Lingering Souls. Yeah. Garrett's just in a position here to play it safe. Like, Scotty's not applying any pressure. He doesn't have to get the match over with. There's no sense committing a bunch of mana to Aetherling right now just to watch it die.
Yeah, it ultimately doesn't affect. It ultimately doesn't affect the clock that much at all. I mean, Garrett's not really under much pressure. He's facing down a Grizzly Bear.
Yeah.
And with Ratchet.
He also has all the mana.
Yes.
So I don't really think
and a grip full of cards too. And with the Ratchet Bomb on board, the Lingering Souls that Scotty just played are irrelevant.
I wonder if he even remembered that the Ratchet Bomb was there.
Oh, I'm sure he did. That's why he hasn't flashed it back immediately.
Yeah.
And his board is his hand is Abrupt Decay and 2 Tragic Slips, so basically irrelevant. Because the only thing he can abrupt in this situation is the Ratchet Bomb, which is going to nick those 2. I guess he could have Abrupt Decayed the Ratchet Bomb, then flash back all of his souls. Interesting.
That was a...
the element.
Yeah,
he flashed back a Lingering, Think Twice on Scotty's turn.
Yeah.
But he's fine with that at this point, because he knows he's going to pop that Ratchet Bomb for 0.
Yeah, that's... If a blue-white control deck is playing things on your turn and you have a voice out with 4 creatures...
It's bad news for you. So he's just serving in for 6 unblockables again? I guess what Scotty can do here is he can slip one of his own creatures, then slip the Aethering, at least fogging for the turn, and that might be the best use of his Tragic Slips anyway, because he's not going to. I don't know what he's going to do with them for the rest of the game. He's tapping 2 mana here, so he's going to Abrupt Decay on the Ratchet Bomb,
hoping he'll pop it, that way saving a Tragic Slip.
Yes. Yep. So tokens all die. Tragic Slip on Aetherling.
And if he has a counter spell here, I mean, that might just be...
He's just going to blink it out. I mean, this is a fine play from Scotty. Like, I think that's the best use of the cards he had, but it's kind of a...
Last ditch effort.
Yeah, it's like throwing a deck chair off the Titanic. I mean, the ship's still going down, so...
I'm grabbing a door.
And he draws a Lingering Souls.
He's still got that one in the graveyard, too, so...
Yep, so he has 6... He's going to make 6 dudes here.
Does he have any of the lands? Any a Vault or a Gavany?
He does not have in play, no. Okay. He is playing Gavany's, obviously. I think he's playing 2 of those.
That's a card that, especially with 6 Spirit tokens in play, that allows you to race pretty
Is he running Vaults, though?
I don't think he's running a Vault. So there's another Lingering Souls. Is Garrett going to counter any of these?
I wonder if he's holding a Ratchet Bomb, like a null.
Well, Scotty is still dead if Garrett has a Helix.
Mm-hmm.
If Garrett has a Helix, he can Helix at the end of this turn, or he can do it next turn, whatever he feels most comfortable with.
Yeah.
As Scotty's life total is effectively 4. And Garrett pretty wisely choosing to block and blink so that there is no morbid trigger, just in case Scotty had some kind of shenanigans. So as it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Garrett's can be attacked down to 5 with the creatures on board.
I'm curious if Scotty has Pithy Needle in the sideboard.
I'm sure he has one of them. I'm sure he would have brought it in too, because you just lose to this Aetherling.
Yeah.
If the Aetherling is just a 4/5 dude, then it's much easier to handle. So making the Aetherling unblockable. How much mana is Garrett going to put into it?
So is he not going? Is he just playing around slip so he doesn't have to blink it? Is that why he's not going for the max? It's the only thing I can think of.
Well, one of the reasons is I can't really see what's in his hand because of the way he holds it. I think
That's what Renounce the Guild's
yeah, Renounce the Guild's going to take care of the voice. Part of the reason I think that he's doing this is because it's not changing the clock at all. So I think Garrett is just content to, like, he can kill him next turn. So Garrett has played this, like, none of his pumps would have changed the clock, but he has him dead next turn. And I don't think Scotty's deck has any way of gaining life except if he has a vault.
I'm just wondering what's in Garrett's hand that would make him renounce the voice, because I mean a 2/2 is not as dangerous as a 5/5.
I was thinking a second round. That's all I could think of to just let the Aetherling go unimpeded. Not that it would be that hard in the first place. Or maybe a Sever. No, he's an American. No.
Snapcaster Supreme Verdict. That's why he's doing it. So blinking the Aetherling, snapping back a Supreme Verdict, which clears out Scotty's entire board. Scotty's going to flash back the Lingering Souls, just making Garrett go through the motions here. And Garrett's going to unblockable, pump for the max, and that should be enough.
No, he's going to slip
Oh, he's going to slip it. So one more turn.
Goes for the max.
One more turn.
Yeah, slip it in response to the pump, so you have to...
Yes, make him use his mana. Yeah. So Garrett doesn't win that turn. Scotty gets one more draw off the top. Is it Illusions of Grandeur?
Is it a Pithy Needle? I don't know.
Pithy Needle
I imagine it would have hit the board immediately.
Pithy Needle makes this